Hello everyone. I welcome you in the virtual classroom of business environment. Today we are going to start unit number 5, the last unit from your syllabus, that is international institutions. In this unit we need to discuss four institutions which are IMF, International Monetary Fund, second IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, popularly known as World Bank. Third one, World Trade Organization. And fourth one, European Union. Let us start with the first institute, that is IMF, International Monetary Fund. This is the logo of IMF. Let us discuss the history of IMF. The IMF has played a part in shaping the global economy since the end of World War II. Cooperation and Reconstruction from 1944 to 1971. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, which is the time period of Second World War. Second World War was during 1928 during 1930s, which ran for 4 to 5 years. The Great Depression of the 1930s, countries attempted to shore up their failing economies by sharply raising barriers to foreign trade, devaluing the currencies to compete against each other for export market, and curtailing their citizens' freedom to hold foreign exchange. These attempts proved to be self-defeated. If we talk about the period of the Second World War, then after completion of the Second World War, there was no trust between the countries to each other. There were no environment of trust for each other, and in that environment, to do the trading activity, to have a trading relation, it is almost of there is no possibility for that such relations. Why? During the Second World War, it has created so much destruction. But even after the completion of the Second World War, the world economy becomes so weakened that it takes too many years to stand up again. Why? Because after the completion of the Second World War, there was no relation with each other from one country to another. As I have told you earlier, that no one was trusting on each other. For that, what they have done, so many reasons are written here. Countries attempted to shore up their failing economies sharply by raising the barriers of foreign trade. Each and every economy has started raising the trade barriers. What do you mean by foreign trade barriers? Any activity or any action by which the volume of the transaction of the foreign trade reduces, it is known as a foreign trade barrier. Take an example of quota and the import duty. Quota means, say for example, if government decides to import 1000 unit, then 1000 is known as a quota. Beyond 1000 we cannot import from other countries, we cannot purchase from other countries. So every government has reduced this quota because no one wanted to import. Secondly, they have increased the import duty. In the second unit of LPG policy, we have discussed that at one point of time in India, we have 255 percentage of import duty. Why this much import duty is charged? Because of the import duty, the prices of the goods will increase, and if the price will increase, there will be no demand in a market. So it is an indirect way to reduce the demand of imported goods. All in all, what is intention of government? No any government wanted to import. Why? Because if they will import, they have to pay, and they didn't have that much foreign exchange reserve to pay out their transaction. They forgot that if they will not import, then they will not able to export. If you will not import, means you are not giving chance to other countries to export. જો તમે કોઈ બીજી કન્ટ્રી પાસેથી કંઈ પરચેઝ ના કરો તો એ કન્ટ્રી એક્સપોર્ટ ના કરી શકે. દે વિલ નોટ એબલ ટુ અર્ન. તો શું એ તમને એક્સપોર્ટ કરવાની પરમિશન આપે? જો તમે એની પાસેથી કંઈ પરચેઝ ના કરો તો એ તમારી પાસેથી કંઈ પરચેઝ કરે? નો. If you will not do import, other countries will not allow you to do export because your export will amount to their import. And due to this disastrous action of deciding quota and raising import duty, almost every country went to the way where they are having no foreign trade relation. They don't want to import. That is why they are not able to do export. It is that much easy as it sounds. So what result come that no one is doing export and import activity means there is no world trade activity at all. Then devaluing their currencies. Devaluing means reducing the value of the currency. Why any government reduces the value of currency? Because if you reduce the value of your currency, our export becomes cheaper. Say for example, if American wants to purchase anything from India, then they will not mind it because $1 is equal to 70 rupees, and our any commodity of 70 rupees they can purchase in $1 only. So it may sound very much cheap. Why? Because our currency is cheap in context of US dollar. So every country's government was trying to reducing their currency value. It is not by one government. Say for example, if India has reduced the value, then other countries will also reduce their value. So there was a devaluation competition between the different countries. Everyone was devaluing their currency. એનું રિઝલ્ટ શું આવે? જે સ્ટેજમાં હતા ત્યાં ને ત્યાં આવીને ઊભા રહી ગયા, કારણ કે બધાએ ડિવેલ્યુએશન કરી નાખ્યું. નો વન વોઝ એટ બેનિફિટ. Then curtailing their citizens' freedom to hold foreign exchange. No government has allowed their citizen to hold foreign exchange. You know that in Indian market, the accessible currency, the valid currency is only rupee, but it doesn't mean you cannot hold other countries' currency. In nominal amount, within a specified limit, you can hold, and which will increase the foreign transaction. But at that time, no any government allowed their citizen to hold the foreign exchange. This attempt proved to be defeating. Every government was thinking that we are protecting our country, we are protecting our economy from the world trade so that our currency will not go to other country. But in that intention, they were self defeating themselves only. એના આ એક્શન્સના લીધે એની પોતાની જ ઇકોનોમી વીક થતી હતી. World trade declined sharply. As I have told you earlier that no one was interested in doing import, so there was no export, and all in all world trade declined. As world trade declined, there is a lesser production. There is no any import and export, means you need to produce only that much which is demanded domestically. So production reduces. If production reduces, then employment reduces. Employment reduces, then income reduces. Income reduces, then life standard reduces, and it is having a negative effect only. Poverty increases likewise. World trade declined sharply, and employment and living standards plummeted in many countries. The Bretton Woods Agreement. આટલું બધું થયા પછી some wise countries came further to decide that in this situation world cannot grow, world economy cannot grow, no any country will be benefited. Then why to live in this regulatory environment where there is higher quota, higher import duty, no trade relation? This is not a good environment to live in. This is not a good environment to develop. So the wise people came together in Bretton Woods. So that meeting is known as a Bretton Woods Conference, which has given the birth of IMF. The IMF was conceived in July 1944. The birth was in 1st July 1944, when representatives of 45 countries meeting in the town of Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, US, agreed on a framework for international economic cooperation to be established after the Second World War. As I have told you earlier, that after Second World War, there was an environment of mistrust between the countries, no world trade relation within the countries. So, as a part of that environment, some wise people, the representative of 45 countries, met in the Bretton town known as Bretton which is situated in New Hampshire, which is in a US. Why they meet with each other? Because they wanted to decide one international framework with the help of which they can develop the world economy. They believed that such framework was necessary to avoid the repetition of disastrous economic policy, means increase in a quota, increase in a import duty, that is known as a disastrous economic policy that had contributed to the Great Depression. As every country had increases the quota and the import duty, no trade relation were there. If no trade relation were there, then definitely there is a depression. It is not a good situation. Inflation must not be there. The IMF came into formal existence in December 1945, when the first thought was then in 1st July 1944, but then it was established, the body was incorporated. It took 1 year, more than 1.5 years. So formally IMF came into existence in December 1945, when its first 29 member countries signed its article of agreement. It began operation on 1st March 1947. Finally, it has started its operation in 1st March 1947. There was the basic countries, first initial countries, which were only 29 countries, and you may feel happy that India was the first in the first initial members of IMF. India is among these 29 member countries. Later that year, France became the first country to borrow from the IMF. Then France was the first country who has taken loan from the IMF. Let me give a brief view of the functions of the IMF. That IMF gives generally loan to the countries who are facing depression, who are underdeveloped or in a developing phase, just to help them to be in a developed phase. The main motive of IMF is to strengthen the world economy, and world economy can be strengthened only when if the member countries are strengthened. So IMF generally gives loan to that countries who want to grow their economy, and France became the first country who has taken loan from the IMF. You must be knowing that France was one of the active member in a Second World War, and who were the active members in the World War, they have faced so much disaster in their country. Then, par value system. These three slides, the first, second, and the third, are included in a history of IMF. This first slide, then the Bretton Woods Agreement, and this par value system. This is a part of history of IMF only. The countries that joined the IMF between 1945 and 1971 agreed to keep their exchange rate, the value of their currencies in terms of US dollar. This prevailed until 1971. As I told you that IMF has formally started in 1945, and the countries who became the member of IMF, they have decided that they will keep their currency's value at par value or in context of US dollar. You know that the Indian rupee is valued in context of US dollar, that one rupee is equal to $70, or the likewise depending on our international fluctuations. So until 1971, there were a fixed exchange rate system. Say for example, if IMF decides $1 is equal to 70 rupee, then there is no difference in this exchange rate. This will be continue, and it is a fixed exchange rate until 1971. But today, as our system, you know that no any fixed exchange rates are there. It is totally free, depends on the movement of the currency in international market. Every day there is a decision on the exchange rate, and at any point of time this exchange rate may change, because now we are having the fluctuating exchange rate system. But as we are talking about history, so up till 1971, there were the fixed exchange rate which was decided by IMF, and as a part of fixed exchange rate, every country has to decide their currency's value and they have to keep it fixed. There will be no change allowed in that currency value. Why? Because earlier every country were doing devaluation to increase their export, but after becoming the member of IMF, they were not allowed to do the devaluation for the sake of increasing their export. Then, membership. The IMF currently has near global membership of 186 countries. Earlier, I told you that basic members were 29, and in today's time, the member countries numbers are 186 countries. Today, to become a member, a country must apply and then be accepted by majority of the existing members. If any country wants to be the member of IMF, then they have to apply. Then the present member of IMF will decide whether to give them membership, whether to allow them to be a part of IMF or not. If other countries are accepting them, then the country can be the part of IMF. Upon joining, each member of IMF is assigned a quota based broadly on its relative size of a world economy. Quota here means you need to pay some fees to be the part of this IMF. You know that if you want to join any club, then there is a membership fee. Likewise, in IMF also there is a membership fee which is known as a quota. Then this fee are not same for each and every country. This fee depends on the relative size of the world economy. We know that US is considered as the most strongest economy, so their quota is highest. Then depending on their relative size in a world trade, every country's quota is decided, and on the basis of quota they can raise loan from IMF. Those whose quota is more, they can raise more more fund from IMF, and those whose quota is less, they can take less fund from IMF. Then, special drawing right. Special drawing right is nothing but the currency of IMF. You know that India is having rupee, US is having dollar, Japan is having yen, European countries are having euro as their currency. Likewise, IMF is having their own currency which is known as SDR. SDR stands for Special Drawing Rights. SDR is an international reserve asset. It supplements members' existing reserve assets, gold and forex. It is made up of two things, which is gold and forex, means foreign exchange. It is unit of account for IMF operations and transactions. Whatever the transaction you need to do with the IMF, it will be nominated, it will be accounted in the SDR. You know that in our books of account, if we record any transaction, then we record it in rupees. Why? Because rupees is our currency. Likewise, if you do any transaction with the IMF, then in their books of account they record it in SDR, because SDR is their currency. The value of SDR is based on the basket of major currencies used in IB, means International Bank. You know that the major members of IMF, five major countries are there. America, European countries are there, then France, Brazil, and Japan. These are the five countries who are considered as a major member of this IMF. And depending on their currency's value, the value of SDR is decided. Weights assigned show relative importance. The country, say for example, five countries are there, but it doesn't mean every country's average will be taken. The country whose economy is stronger will be given the higher weight, and the country who is weaker as compared to other countries will be given lesser weight among five countries only. Then subscriptions. A member quota subscription determines the maximum amount of financial resources a member is obliged to provide to the IMF. Simply means how much you need to pay to the IMF to be the part of IMF. A member must pay its subscription in full upon joining the IMF. So, for example, if you are given the subscription of 1 lakh rupees, talking in context of India, that our subscription is 1 lakh of rupees, then we need to pay the full amount when we are joining. But it is divided in a different categories. How? Let us see. Up to 25% must be paid in IMF's own currency called special drawing right. Out of 1 lakh of rupees, 25,000 has to be paid in SDR or widely accepted currencies such as dollar, euro, yen, pound sterling. As I have told you that five major countries are there. Dollar means US, euro means European countries, yen, Japanese yen, pound, that is a British currency. So these are the major countries. If you don't want to pay in SDR, you need to pay in either of these currencies, either in dollar or in euro or in yen or in pound. While the rest is paid in members' own currency, then 75,000 has to be paid in rupees. I told you earlier that if India wants to be a member, and suppose 1 lakh of rupees is our subscription, then 25,000 either we have to pay as SDR or US dollar or yen or euro or pound, and 75,000 rupees we have to pay to the IMF. This is our subscription. Then finances and quotas. The IMF's resources come mainly from the money that countries pay as their capital subscription when they become members. As I told you in the history, that the basic function of IMF is to give loan to the countries who want to develop their economy. If IMF is giving loan, then from where IMF is taking money? IMF is not doing any kind of business, so they are not earning anything. So how IMF is having fund to give loan to the member countries? That is the main question. So fund comes from the capital subscription. As I have told you earlier, that subscription, when we become the member, we need to pay membership fee. So when every country is paying membership fee, at that time they are having the every country's currency as their fund. The larger a country's economy, larger its quota tend to be. If America is there, then their quota will be highest, their membership fee will be highest. As I told you earlier, that the quota will be decided according to the relative size of their economy. They also help determine how much countries can borrow from the IMF and their share in allocation of special drawing rights. On the basis of your quota, it is decided how much loan you can take. If your quota is higher, you can take the higher loan. If your quota is low, then you can take lower loans. Gold. The IMF holds a relatively large amount of gold amongst its assets. How many assets IMF is basically having? First of all, they are having the five major countries' currency, that is US dollar is there, Japanese yen, euro, pound sterling is there, among them other countries currencies are also there. As I told you that 25% is to be paid in special drawing right and remaining in our own currency. Then every country's currency IMF is having. More than that, IMF is also having gold. Why IMF is holding gold? Because for the reasons of financial soundness, it may happen the value of US dollar and other currencies may get up and down. But in that situation, gold will be considered as a sound asset on the basis of which financial soundness can be measured. Also, to meet unforeseen contingencies. If any unforeseen circumstances may come, today we are considering the five countries as a major countries like Japan, European countries are there, Britain is there, America is there, but it may happen in future they may not be that much strong. In that case, the currency IMF is holding in big proportion will become meaningless when their value will reduce in international market. So to meet that unforeseen contingencies, if gold is there, then there is no need to worry. The IMF holds 103.4 million ounces, that is to say 3,217 metric tons of gold worth about $83 billion as of end August 2019. If we take the figures of August 2009, then the IMF's gold's worth is stood at the $83 billion, making it the third largest official holder of a gold in a world. It is ranked as a third to hold the highest gold in a world. Then voting power. The quota largely determines a member's voting power in IMF's decision. If your quota is more, your voting right will be more. Similarly, like joint stock company, if you hold one share, your voting right is one. If you hold 1000 share, your voting right is 1000. Likewise, if your quota is more, you are having the more voting right. If your quota is less, you are having less voting right. Each IMF member has 250 basic votes irrespective of your quota. Basic votes to be given to every country is 250 plus your more vote will be decided on the basis of your quota votes plus one additional vote for each 1 lakh of SDR of quota. On the basis of quota, for per 1 lakh SDR, we are having one vote. 1 lakh SDR is equal to one vote. As we are taking in joint stock company, one share, one vote. In IMF, 1 lakh SDR is equal to one vote plus 250 basic votes. Then access to financing. The amount of financing a member can obtain from IMF, means how much loan a member can take, is based on its quota, that we have seen earlier in financing quotas also, that if your quota is more, you can take more loan. If your quota is less, you can take less loan. So today we are keeping our lecture here only. We have discussed the introduction about IMF. In next lecture, we will discuss about organizational structure and the functions of IMF. Thank you.